I would say, a real turning point for me in my life. Because at that workshop, I learned that if you're trying to build something and your energy is inauthentic, it's not going to work.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Rising Women series. If you're new here, my name's Leah.
My name's Tia, and we are the co-founders of Zhené.
Today we have the wonderful Lucie joining us, who's also known as Life by Lucie. Lucie is an entrepreneur and a well-renowned YouTuber. To kick off the interview, let's start off where it all started for you, Lucie.
Thank you. Thanks, Leah and Tia. It's so beautiful to be a guest on your interview series. It's a real honor. So thank you so much. So where it all began. So you both know that I'm very much I'm an entrepreneur, businesswoman, and into personal development, spirituality, the law of attraction, and that's what I talk about on my YouTube channel mainly, right? So I actually grew up in a household of entrepreneurs, and I think that's probably that was my first ever introduction to the world of personal development. So both of my parents, to give you some background, before I was born, my dad was a musician, still is a musician. He was working mainly as a musician, just like gigging and teaching. And my mum was an infant school teacher. And both of them decided to take the plunge into starting up their own business with the biggest nutrition brand in the world, and just basically took a leap of faith, I suppose you could call it, and worked super hard on their business for about 5 years before I came along. So that was like the scene before Lucie arrived. And I think particularly in those 5 years, mum and dad did so much work on themselves, on their mindsets, because their mentors in business taught them that if you want to grow as an entrepreneur, you've got to grow. Like, you get paid based on how valuable you are, and if you want to increase your value, you've got to level up. And that might involve throwing away an old mindset and adopting a mindset that's going to support you to be more successful and stuff like that, right? So they are both very much into becoming the best versions of themselves. So growing up then, when I was born, I was very grateful because both mum and dad were, by that point, full-time with their business, which they could do 100% from home. So I had a lot of contact time with my parents. Like, yeah, there was just the three of us as well. So another reason why it was just mum, dad, and me for my entire childhood. And looking back, I learned so much more from my mum and dad than I ever did at school. Respect to university, but a different, do you know what I mean? Like a different kind of education that I got from my parents. I'm sure everyone learns from their parents, but it was really insightful, I think, really valuable to have got so many lessons from my parents about mindset, about how to look at the world, that we don't have to just have a default way of looking at the world, maybe through a negative lens, and there's always another way to look at things. There's always a positive to take. So yeah, it's kind of embedded in me from the very beginning to have that kind of mindset. But you know, I think the backlash of that, the consequence of that, is that growing up I was different.
Yeah.
And you know what happens to kids who are different, right? So I got bullied a lot, and yeah, it was very hard. Bullied. There was one point where I actually got chased by two girls. I was on my own completely, and they completely beat me up, and
Oh, wow.
it was quite a traumatic experience. And things like that made me think that being who I truly am, which was everything that my parents had tried to encourage me to do, was something that was bad, that I should be ashamed of. So yeah, that was kind of my biggest. Everyone's got their own battles, right, to grow through. And that was probably my biggest battle of, you know, one big part of my life encouraging me to be myself, but then a lot of people who were my peers who really didn't get it or didn't resonate with it, didn't like it for whatever reason, and, you know, tried to sort of, it made me feel bad for being that way. So in those formative years, you know what it's like, it's so awkward, and you're like 13, 14, 15, 16, I really didn't like myself at all. I really resented who I was, wished that I was like all the other girls. I was also a super late developer as well. So all my friends were looking great when they were getting boobs and stuff, and I was still flat chested and, you know, like just hairy in the wrong places. I just felt so, there's a lot of self-hate for all of those kinds of reasons. So then it wasn't until after university really that I took the plunge, probably thanks to the influence of my parents, going back to them. I thought, you know what, I want to give it a go being my own boss as well.
Yes.
And so that was when I really had to figure out the journey of going back to who I truly am. For the first couple of years of my business, I tried to fake it a lot. I thought, okay, people will only like what I'm doing if I look like this, if I talk like this, if I, you know, and trying to get everyone to like me. And that's probably a big topic for maybe most people or most women, you know, is that battle of, you know, you want people to like you, right? And I went to one particular workshop, a transformational workshop, a couple of years ago. And that was I would say, a real turning point for me in my life. Because at that workshop, I learned that if you're trying to build something and your energy is inauthentic, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing and a really recognizable thing to kind of notice, because I think your energy, people pick up on your energy and they can feel obviously where your message is coming from. And you've had a really powerful upbringing, I would say, because not a lot of people have been able to experience parents that have entrepreneurs and encouraged you maybe to do the same, because society tells us we must go to school and then get a 9-to-5 job and do everything like that. So you broke through the norm really. And what workshop was it that you went to that kind of had that impact on you?
So there's this guy from America, his name's Garen Jones. He's a best-selling author now. I knew him because he worked with the same nutrition company as my parents and me. And I was a fan. I was a proper fangirl. I followed him on Instagram. He had the most mind-blowing life story. For anyone who wants to look him up, his story's all over YouTube. Garen Jones. Only about 7 or 8 years ago, he was homeless, sleeping in his car or in his storage units, in $200,000 worth of debt. He'd spent 2 years in a French prison for smuggling Class A drugs across the border. He had a broken down relationship with his ex-partner and his 2-year-old daughter. He had no relationship with his daughter. So he lists these things to show that really, at one point in his life, every sort of like box was unticked, or was like everything that you should have figured out in your life. It was all in the worst possible situation that it could be for him. And he had a really low point. At that point, he broke down when somebody smashed the window of his car where he was sleeping and took his final bit of money and his final possessions. That was his absolute lowest point. And apparently he just broke down, and he was crying and just like talking to whoever. You could call it God, you could call it the universe. He just had a one of those prayers where it's filled with so much emotion that the vibration is so powerful that it does something, you know.
People have them.
Yeah,
when you listen to the transformational stories, there's a lot of that rock bottom moment where it's like, it's up to me now to change my life, and you hit that rock bottom and you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. and then it's up to you to vibrationally align to that which you do want. And I think that's so powerful in your story as well, that you went through all that as a child, but here you are today showing people that even though I went through that, I'm now being unapologetically me. And for women watching this, I think that's so powerful. What would you say is one of the key things or emotional things that you have done to unapologetically step into who you are and own, that's me?
That's a great question. So what Garen did, and then what he taught me at this transformational workshop, it's about what it took for him. First of all, I'll start with him, and then it will kind of explain how he could teach me that. After that point, through a series of events, I'll keep his story very short, but basically he dedicated himself to changing his mindset to change his life. He's written a book now called Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. And he had the new level of awareness where he realized that his whole entire life, all of the bad stuff that had been happening for him, which he had blamed others for, blamed his parents for, blamed his upbringing for, blamed his situation for, blamed his skin color for, like everything which he had, he took responsibility of it all himself. You know, and he acknowledged that he couldn't help maybe the bad circumstances that he was born into, but what he could take control of was the parts of him like taking responsibility for what he could control. So the thing that he could control more than anything else was his own mind. So he decided, right, okay, clearly my mindset's not in a good place if this is the result of my life, right? So he just decided to do the polar opposite of everything that he ever did before. If he would usually say no to something, he would say yes to it. Even if everything else in his body was like going, what are you doing? Are you crazy? He just thought, if I want different, I've clearly got to flip the switch 180, right? So the happy ending of his story is that by changing his mindset, which as you girls said, changes his vibration as well, his life, he said to me, like, you'd think that he hustled harder than anyone you know. Yes, he's put a lot of work, more than the average person, into himself, but the results that he's getting in life now, he said to me, you'd think I'd do 10 times more work than what I actually do. Because now that he's in alignment, when he talks to someone, when he's doing some networking or something, it will be the perfect person. Or when, you know, when he has an idea, it will be the right idea. And when he pursue it, it goes swimmingly well. And now everything in his life is easier than it's ever been before because he's doing it from a completely different place. Mm-hmm. So that's the realization that I had, that he taught me at this workshop. And what I did, what he taught me to do was heal a lot of these things. Actually go back to those memories of being bullied for who I was, shine a light on it and realize as an adult how irrational it was, how untrue it needs. I don't need to make it my truth anymore. How, you know, anyone who's ever hurt you, anyone who's ever said something to you that hurt you, that doesn't mean that it's true. Yeah. It just means, wow, how much pain are they going through right now to need to cause hurt to somebody else?
That's so true, because I think a long way along my journey, I think inner work is very important, and everything that you've just touched on a basis of being able to go back and kind of revise what's happened, and so you can shine a light on it to look differently, like you've said, because otherwise that can sometimes hold us in that victim state. It can hold us, you know, a kind of prisoner to the past, holding on to those memories that, you know, were just situations that happened for us to grow through. Yeah, that's what the journey is about, is doing that inner work and really shifting that mindset. And I think as someone watching you along your journey, because obviously we love to watch Life by Lucie on YouTube, and we follow you on Instagram, and I would say you're, like everyone, you're a manic manifester, because we love your scripting videos,
Yeah.
We absolutely love your scripting videos, and we've even been doing it ourselves, where you write the letter and you read it.
Great.
And things like that, which is fantastic. So tell us about how you actually, because I know obviously you built a business through Herbalife nutrition. I guess this is where it first started for you, with going on to personal development, like you said, through the guy and whatever. So how did you first step onto the law of attraction and kind of start doing the methods that you kind of teach people through Life by Lucie?
So, well, I think on my personal development journey, just, you know, like the only kind of books that I read or listen to are personal development books. And interestingly, even the ones that are, you know, very sort of like grounded and practical and maybe not even spiritual, they still touch upon the fact that like your energy affects your vibration, which affects the outcome that you get, and how you feel about yourself, whether you feel that you're a winner or a loser, whether you feel you can do it or you can't do it, it affects the results that you get. So even from like the most logical books, I was starting to pick up these more sort of vibrational things that you can't quite touch, but you know to be true concepts. And then I stumbled upon, then again, Garen, same guy, he recommended to me that I read a book called The Power, which is written also by the same lady, Rhonda Byrne, who wrote The Secret, right? So The Power, I became addicted to listening to The Power as an audiobook, because I was like, when I'm listening to The Power, she's reminding me of how I know is the best way to feel if I actually want to get a good outcome. When I listen to this book, you know, someone's been negative to me, someone's been mean. Okay, let me listen to this book, because it's going to help put everything into perspective, help me not to go down that spiral of thinking, oh yes, this is true, I'm such a terrible person, I'm no good, and instead just help put it into perspective, really. So that was the first law of attraction book I became addicted to, and I started to notice shifts in my own life. The first shifts for me were not like huge growth, huge financial growth. It was more feeling okay with letting go of people and things that aren't in alignment with how good I know I can feel. That was the first step before like manifesting money, manifesting followers. It was actually letting go of relationships, resentment, clutter, ideas that are almost like, you know, people call it like, someone's got a lot of baggage or like emotional baggage. Imagine, that's such a great visual. Imagine having all of this stuff that's literally weighing you down, so that when you're trying to get from where you are now to where you want to go to, you're having to drag all of that stuff to get there.
Backpack. Yeah, you backpack.
Yeah.
Pack.
Which makes the journey so much harder. Even if you just want to like walk to the bottom of your road, not even talking about climbing Mount Everest, just go for a little walk to the supermarket. If you're dragging all of this baggage with you, even the most simple of things seem difficult. So yeah, you know, that's the first sort of level and layer to my law of attraction journey. And then, like you both mentioned, you know, I'm building this business with Herbalife Nutrition. Now, a huge part of building that business successfully is actually building a team of my own and mentoring and supporting the people in the team to be successful in their own right. And the more people I help to be successful in their own right, then the more money I get paid by the company. So it's like I'm financially, as well as, you know, genuinely motivated to help people to become an even better version of themselves. So we would be having Zoom calls as a team, even before Zoom was cool. Like before 2020, we were Zooming in like 2018. No one heard of Zoom. So we were doing these Zoom calls, and anything that I was learning from my journey, I was pouring into my team, so that we could all have these breakthroughs together and we could all let go of emotional baggage together. And that was like my training ground for speaking about this stuff and teaching this stuff, because I wanted so much to be able to help the people in my team. So that was what gave me the idea. I was like, hold on a second, what I'm saying is actually pretty good. And people are saying that it's that's really helping them. And I ran a transformational workshop for my team, and they were all having these breakthroughs and getting better results than ever before in their lives and in their businesses. Not just in their businesses, but like they were healing relationships with their parents. They were getting out of toxic relationships and realizing their worth. So I was like, why don't I just record this stuff and put it out there on a bigger platform, so that it's not just limited to my team hearing this information? Why don't I just whack this stuff up on YouTube? Right. Now, the most magical part of all of this that I haven't told you yet is when I was a child, I wanted to be lots of things, right? As I'm sure most people do. One week it's this, then when you grow up, you want to do that. It changes a lot. But the one that I wanted to be more than anything was a filmmaker and a presenter, wow. Right? Mainly a filmmaker. That was the main one that I wanted to be. And my dad's friend, who is a psychic, right? I remember him looking at me when I was about 14, looking right into my eyes, not just like usual eye contact. I don't know if you've ever come across someone who can like see. Yeah. And he just like looked in me, and then he was like, "You're going to be a presenter." And that was the first, like, he planted that seed, 10, 15 years before I actually started every single day presenting in this modern day way that didn't exist when he said that. So it's interesting that it's kind of like I can look back now, and what I'm doing every day and why my YouTube, I think, is taking off so quickly is because it is part of a manifestation that started 10, 15 years ago with what I wanted to do as a child. And this whole becoming an authentic version of you is actually about, often it takes looking back to who you were when you were young, mm-hmm. before you were conscious of being a certain type of way, and before maybe you start to change yourself, tone yourself down a bit to try and fit in. Like, who were you before you made all those adjustments? That's a great indication of who we are authentically. So now that I'm more in alignment with who I was then, and I've ended up doing the things that I wanted to do when I was a child, I think that's why it's flowing so well.
Yeah, let's talk about that a bit more, actually, because I think you've touched on a great subject of manifestations have no timeline. It's when you're ready for it, and that's when they start to manifest in your life. For women watching this that are like, because we get this a lot in our community, I'm like, I've done my scripting, I've done this, and it's still not coming. Like, and it's like,
yeah,
just be patient and just have that trust that it will come at the right time. What would you say has been a big thing for you and that other people can do by having that trust in the universe that it's going to come?
Yeah. Well, you'll always manifest within the limits of what you believe is possible for you. So if somebody believes quite easily that they can become a millionaire next year, then the circumstances, the ideas, the opportunities, and the alignment will happen, and the manifestation could happen very, very quickly. But somebody else who has a totally different belief system and doesn't believe that it's possible, or believes that it's really, really, really hard to do, or is feeling a lot of doubt about if it could happen for someone like them, that same manifestation could be also written on a piece of paper and won't come true, because this is bringing it down to like scientific rather than woo-woo now. Yeah. Our brains are these incredible machines that are constantly picking up millions of pieces of information every second. Like right now, while we're having this conversation, our conscious mind has kind of blurred a lot of things out and focused on just a couple of things. What we can see just on the screen, like I haven't been paying attention to what's around my screen. I'm just looking at this one, your faces here, and my ears are zoned into what you're talking about. I can't hear the other, other things going on. And when you're so focused, you forget what it's like. Oh yeah, you bring your consciousness into feeling your legs sat down on the chair, whereas when you're not focused on that, you've totally forgotten what your legs felt like, right? So the point is, our bodies and our brains are picking up millions of things, but our conscious mind is only ever focused on a small handful of those things. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to focus on anything and our brain would explode, right? So I don't know if that's actually scientifically accurate. I don't think I'm
you're making sense. I know where you're coming from.
But you know what I mean. So the point is, what dictates which of the millions of things are going to be the handful that we consciously focus on? Mm-hmm. And that's why, like, I always picture this image of being on a tube in the London Underground, right? You're in a packed train and everyone's in the exact same environment, but based on people's mindsets and their life up until that point, they could be thinking and focusing on and noticing completely different things within that same small environment. So it's not actually just about what's in front of you, it's about what your brain chooses to focus on. And so a scripting letter is just one of many different tools that we can use to, with repetition, train our brain to start focusing on the things that we do want more than before, more than focusing on, you know, all of the distractions, the news, the media, what your mum is saying you should do with your life. Like it helps you to focus on what you want. So yeah, so that's how it is such a powerful tool. But in terms of why it works for some people and why it doesn't work for some people, is that if you're reading it and focusing on it, but reading the stuff and thinking, I don't think any of this stuff could happen, I would really like it to happen, but I have all of this doubt, then the tool doesn't get to really do its magic in the way that it could potentially do. So my biggest tip when creating a scripting letter, especially if it's the first time you're ever creating one, especially people who are relatively new to the law of attraction, or there's a lot of people, and I fitted into this category for a long time. I'd heard so many success stories from other people that I believed that the law of attraction was a thing that was real, but I hadn't really experienced me in my life intentionally manifesting something. I could look back and go, oh yeah, I guess I manifested this. But if I wanted to go, right, okay, what's my formula? How can I do ABC and get what I want?
Yeah.
And until each person has their own first bit of evidence that they can intentionally manifest, you might hear a million success stories, but there's always going to be a seed of doubt in your own mind that what if I can't do it myself? So that's why I suggest when people are first starting out with a scripting letter or any manifestation tool, is start with the things where you look at it and there's no resistance. And by resistance, I mean, when you write it down, your brain doesn't give you a million reasons why it couldn't happen. You write it down and you're like, yeah, that within my belief system, I believe that could potentially happen. It might be really small things if the belief is quite low. But once you've written those things down and gone through the process of focusing on it, getting excited about those things happening, and then they show up, then the personal proof is there. The belief can be much bigger. The first time I ticked off the first thing on my first ever scripting letter, then my belief exploded, and that led to so many more things manifesting because I wasn't getting in my own way anymore, and there was so much more belief behind my letter.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing to recognize is so many people get in their own way. We really do, because we don't believe that what we want can come. And I think sometimes we have to believe in it before we see it. And obviously, like you said, that mindset work, going back and doing that emotional inner work that you have to do in order to let go of some things, to let new things in. And there's a process to it, isn't it? Because some people just start and just want it right here and right now. And it doesn't matter how, you know what I mean? Like, I just want it now. Like, oh, I've been doing this for a week and it's not showing up. Why is it not here yet? And it's like, you have to really install that inner belief in yourself. Even like you said, with the small manifestations, to show yourself that you are a powerful creator, because we can all create. We are all powerful beyond measure. It's just you tapping into that and you starting to believe that in yourself. And so when you do your scripting letter, say you've done your scripting letter, you're reading it in the morning, you're reading it in the evening, what are you doing in your day to make sure you're keeping on top of the mindset? Because sometimes if the doubt is creeping in, you're like, oh, it's not coming yet. What do I do to keep myself throughout the day from pinching myself off, basically?
Well said. And that's a very good point, because morning routines are all well and good. But if the other 23.5 hours of the day are in a totally different place, a negative vibration, or one where we don't believe that, or we're just stuck in worrying thoughts and stuff like that, then yeah, it's I always think it's like whichever party gets the most votes wins. So if the positive party is getting 51% or more of the votes, you'll start to then see this snowball effect of more things working out the way you want them to. But if it's 51% or more negativity, doubt, and lack of self-belief, or lack of belief it could happen, then we're stuck in that situation. So especially in the early days, I would, and on days when I feel like I need it extra amounts, I will immerse myself in audiobooks and videos that are talking and reminding me about how I want to feel and how to feel that way. I almost feel like if I'm saturating my mind with dialogue about the way I want it, the way I want to feel, then my mind can't be focused on the way that I don't want to feel and the thoughts that I don't want to focus on. So some days you really got to use all the tools you can, just grab them all, and be, guided meditations and audiobooks and saging your house and lighting incense and reading your scripting letter all day long. And some days it really takes everything to keep your vibration high. And lockdown, obviously it can be easy to spiral into negative thoughts and vibrations, and a lot of people have understandably suffered a lot mentally. But on the flip side, it gives you a lot more freedom to listen to audiobooks all day long, because if you were sat in the office, maybe you couldn't, or if you have to sit through these meetings, maybe you couldn't. So yeah, Abraham Hicks is my go-to if ever I'm feeling
absolutely. Just get me.
Yeah.
I've actually got a playlist of just her rampages, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna listen to Abraham.
Yeah,
she just gets me.
exactly. And for people who might think that sounds extreme, it's just as extreme as being in our head worrying about stuff all day. It's just as extreme as having the news on all day, or trash TV, or negative friends moaning down the phone at you. Like, people saturate their minds with constant dialogues already.
Yes.
But if they're not serving you, if they're not in alignment with helping you to feel as good as possible, then drop them.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I definitely am an advocate for that. I don't immerse myself in anything that I feel like isn't going to bring me up to the level that I know I'm going to go to. So I think it's always, you have to protect your energy as well, and protect vibration. And like you've said before, like, you have to make sure that, you're surrounded by the things that are going to lift you up and move you forward. And that's a really key part of all of this work. I think we're here to grow and evolve and go through different kind of things in order to get to that next level. So for us, obviously, if you're a woman that wants to rise to the newest, your truest potential, what is like the key thing you would start to tell them to do to get on to that journey, if they're someone that's new to all of this kind of work, really?
That's a really good question. What would be a great first step? I would actually, I would recommend taking, it only needs to be 5 or 10 minutes to sit down with yourself and write down on a piece of paper the thoughts that you think about yourself that hurt you the most. Because for most of us women, those thoughts are, we're bullying ourselves a lot of the time. We might have other people in our lives who bully us, but the biggest bully is often, usually, ourselves. And it's uncomfortable to write those things out on a piece of paper, but it brings them into focus. It's like when you put something so close to your face and you can't see it because it's too close, that's what it's often like when the mean things that we say to ourselves are so up here in our head that it's blurring our vision. We're just trying to see the whole world through this very blurry lens of being really mean to ourselves. Whereas if we can then put it on a piece of paper, it's like we can zoom out a little bit and just see them for what they are, which is just unnecessarily, most of the time, all of the time, unnecessarily mean, self-deprecating statements about ourselves that we've adopted from somewhere, right? That would be the very first tip to support any woman, and to be able to look at them and decide, set the intention that you want to stop giving yourself such a hard time, and one at a time be able to dismantle and let go of those mean things that we're doing to ourselves every day. Because then everything, once we can let go of those things, which this is a generalization, but most people have them, when we can let go of those things, then all of the other manifestations will be easier. Like one of the number one questions I'm asked, and maybe you're asked too, are relationship related questions, like how can I manifest him to like me? How can I manifest my ex back? And I don't like to, as much as it would get loads of views on YouTube, I don't want to create a video on like the 3 tips to manifest your ex back, because for most people, not for all, because every relationship's different, but in most cases, there's something toxic going on there. And as much as it might seem like the least painful option to just go back to the person who you were emotionally depending on, it's like putting a plaster on a huge gash wound, and just putting a plaster on it is not going to heal it. If anything, it's just going to probably get worse and more infected when you're neglecting what really needs to be healed. So if anyone asks me how did they manifest their ex back, I like to try and gently divert the conversation to looking at, well, so this person, what's the situation with them? And usually it's something like, oh, well, he's with someone else now and he's not talking to me anymore. And he told me that he doesn't love me. How can I get him to love me again? I'm like, please. We all have energy and we can choose to focus it in different areas. Are you really going to give him so much of that energy and focus on bringing someone who's like that more into your life? Let that be a real clear indicator that it's a good sign. It's a good sign that someone like that has left your life. Great. This gives you a blank canvas to go, okay, what's the ideal kind of person I do want to attract into my life? And in order to do that, how can I feel whole and complete exactly as I am, so that I can rationally and confidently be able to say yes to a relationship, but also just as powerfully be able to say no to a relationship, So all of those kinds of frequently asked questions with the law of attraction, how to manifest more love, how to manifest more money, how to manifest a healthier body, losing weight. These are like the key common ones. If we can heal and let go of the bullyish thoughts that we are bullying ourselves with every single day, most of those issues will clear up.
Yes, it's true. It's very true. I definitely believe as well, it all comes down to our self-concept and how we view ourselves and how we're holding a space for ourselves to be our own cheerleader and the star of our own life. Because oftentimes, like you say, we're beating ourselves up because obviously we can't monitor every thought that we have, and it all comes down to how we feel. And you can tell when you're beating yourself up because you're not feeling very great. So I think that is a great starting point for people, like to write down, like, who am I, what do I believe about myself, and how am I looking at looking at life, basically. And that's why I like to do a lot of affirmations and things. I don't know if you do a lot of affirmations to kind of boost yourself up, because a lot of people are looking to manifest the love in, manifest the career, manifest the money, and it all starts with self and how we see ourselves. So I think that's a great point to touch on. And for you, someone that obviously has been through what you've been through and come out the other side, obviously, and still working through things, I'm sure challenges still come up. What are the kind of typical things you like to say to yourself to really be your own cheerleader?
Great question. So first of all, my bathroom is my affirmation station, because like, what else are you gonna do, right? You're in the shower, so you may as well say lovely things to yourself, or you're there in the mirror brushing your teeth. So I have things stuck on my mirror, which are, you know, statements that I want to sort of reprogram my brain towards, right? So the starting point is going back to that letter of things that we say to ourselves or we bully ourselves about. You know, it's all well and good saying, you know, stop doing it, but it's kind of like saying stop smoking. Like, someone can't, it will be very difficult for somebody to overcome an addiction unless they feel what that addiction was satisfying in some kind of way. You know, like with going back to nutrition, often I find that when I help someone to nourish their body more than ever before, the body feels satisfied and no longer needs to depend on sugar, binge eating, smoking and drinking as much. It's not like they have to use willpower to quit. They just don't need those things as much because they've positively filled that gap that was missing. So in the same way with our thoughts, we can't just like quit being mean to ourselves. As you said, using things like affirmations are a great way to replace and fill that space with light rather than darkness. So whatever it is on the list of things that we believe about ourselves that we'd actually like to improve, I would write an affirmation that is like the positive side to that same stick. So let's say if a woman is doesn't believe that she's worthy of love, doesn't believe that she's good enough or attractive enough to be worthy of love, then an affirmation about how lovable she is would be the perfect antidote to that thing that needs to be healed. You know, something along the lines of, you know, I'm so lovable, so beautiful, so worthy of love. I love myself so much, and that's why everybody loves me too. You know, things like that, which when you first write them down or read them, it's just like, what? I don't believe that. And of course, how many did you find that when you first say it's affirmations, it's just like, this isn't me. So that's natural, isn't it? That's part of the journey to reprogram. But you know, there was a time when we didn't believe that we were ugly or worthless or stupid. We adopted those beliefs because we heard them enough times, or through a traumatic event it really hit home, and we adopted them as beliefs. So that proves that we can adopt new beliefs again. So yeah, so being kind to myself in the shower. Like, for example, in the shower, like let's say if it's a morning shower, sometimes my mind can go into thinking, what are all the things that I have to do today? Oh gosh, okay, what if I don't get it all done? You know, I've got to really make sure that I don't procrastinate because I've got so many things to do. Oh, and I've got this and I've got that. And then I'll be like, whoa. Okay, let's praise myself a little bit here. Okay, first of all, let's enjoy. The easiest way to get into a state of gratitude in the shower is to enjoy the fact that I'm so blessed that I have clean, warm, running water. My goodness, when I went to Peru, I didn't have a hot shower for a month. Wow. That first shower when I got back home was the best shower of my life. So I remind myself sometimes of how lucky I am to be able to have a really comforting, warm shower. And then the positive cycle can start from there. Then I'll start going, okay, Lucie, you got this. You're doing so much better than you think. And let's have a look at actually, you know, all the things that you have achieved so far today. You woke up, you had a cup of tea, you made your bed. That's a great job. And, you know, let's just have a look at the things on your to-do list. Okay, so you've got a couple of calls. You can smash that. You're great at calls. Why are you feeling overwhelmed about calls? You're always great at calls. You got a YouTube video. When you're actually doing the YouTube video, you're going to love it. Like, there's no reason to feel, you know, stressed by it, because when you're in the flow, you're going to love it. So, you know, I need to reassure myself all the time that I can trust myself.
Yeah.
It's basically a constant reassuring process. You can see my little Mickey Mouse here in the background. It just seems popped up. But yeah, I'm constantly reassuring myself in the way that a good mother would reassure a child that everything's good and they're going to be okay. And, you know, so if you can talk to yourself as kindly as a good mother would talk to a child to help them to feel safe and loved, then I think that's a good reference to how to do it, really.
Yeah, no, that is brilliant. And I think we have things around safety as well, as you were saying. So it's talking to yourself as you would do someone you really, really love, you know, and holding that space for yourself to be that container of someone like is saying to you, you can do this, you've got this, it's okay, and kind of giving yourself that reassurance throughout the day, because oftentimes we're just like, oh, what's the point, I'm just not going to bother then. And it's catching yourself. So obviously you have great awareness, and I always say awareness is really key. Recognizing, like, say, where we are with ourselves throughout the day, because when you can kind of acknowledge and have the awareness of it, you can start to catch it a lot more.
Definitely.
From beating yourself up 90% of the day when you've got out of bed.
Yeah, you can actually see that you have awareness. Like everything you're saying, I'm literally inside like, oh my god. Even the affirmations in the shower, like everything's like, we are so, I could just feel like I could talk to you all day. I think that is amazing. But how do you set yourself up for the day, would you say? Touch back on that like morning routine kind of thing, and maybe even an evening routine, because I think they've been very transformational in my own journey, and I know you as well, of setting myself up for the day or winding down for the day, but also giving myself that space. You know, if I don't want to do a morning routine, I'm kind enough to myself to not do it.
That's a good point as well. If a morning routine becomes a should and another chore on the list, then it's defeating the point of especially within the conversation of law of attraction, what a morning routine should be about. You know, there's a different kind of world of people who are like, hustle, grind, team no sleep, you know, and
work while they sleep. You
know, I'll sleep when I die. I really don't get that one. I really don't get it. I love to sleep. So when that was actually in the early days of being an entrepreneur. You know, when you type in like motivational video for entrepreneurs into YouTube, like that's the kind of stuff you'll get. And I was like, oh shoot, you know, I'm really not, maybe I haven't got what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because like I don't
business.
So that's one kind of morning routine that I tried for a while and I burnt out very quickly. So now my morning routine looks a lot more like a pampering session. You know, just like what gets you out of bed, feeling like you have to go and do all of these things that you don't want to do, or that you're going to do these things that make you feel lovely, you know. So every day my morning routine is different. There's a few common things that I do consistently, but what the space that's different is basically me checking in with how do I feel that day, and based on how am I feeling, what are the things that I'm feeling pulled towards doing that are going to make me feel as good as possible. The goal with the morning routine is how can you feel as good as possible to start your day, and then the how might be different every single day. So some days I want to listen to like spa music on my Spotify or something, because then I can just like float around the house and just feel really zen. And other days I'm like, I want to put disco on and like you know, be jumping around and bopping and everything. And then other days I just want complete silence, or I just want to do a guided meditation. So it's amazing how different each day can be. And then some days I really just want to sit down with my journal and just write so much about how I want to feel. Yeah. Often writing it down makes it a whole lot clearer. Sometimes I find it can, if you want to like adopt a new thought, it can be hard to just sit there and think it. Whereas writing it allows you to be thinking it, writing it, seeing it, reading it, saying it out loud, hearing your voice saying it. So it like it hits you so many more times and gets a lot clearer. So some days I really just crave writing things about how excited I am for my future. You know, I'm days when I'm feeling doubtful, that can be a really great process to just pep talk myself through journaling. Most days I start my day with stretching and working out, but some days I just want to like be all cozy and curl up and not move, and then maybe work out later in the day, if at all. So yeah, it's different every day, but the sort of common features are doing things that make me feel good, focusing my mind in the direction of my goals that really excite me, not my goals that scare me, but my life that I'm excited to step into, and doing whatever I can to clear my mind of clutter and worry and negativity. And some days that will be meditating in silence, some days that will be doing a guided meditation, or some days it's a good old pep talk in the shower. So yeah.
I feel like you just give yourself the space and you have that awareness, like you said, which is key to just, what do I need today? And then you just go, and I think if anyone is watching this like, oh my gosh, I need a morning routine, it's that, what do I need today and how do I feel? And that's the most important thing.
Yes. And for any mums or dads watching as well, you know, that having children obviously can add a whole different dynamic to a morning routine. It can be a lot harder to have one, but one of my business partners, Danielle, she's a mum of 3. She's incredibly inspiring, and she actually has found that having a power hour even before her children wake up is what helps her to be in the best place to help her family as well. So for example, for example, she'll have a power hour at 5 or 6 in the morning, and she's breastfeeding at the moment, so all night is sometimes not much sleep. You know, she's like, well, if I'm awake anyway, and you know, I'm breastfeeding and this kind of thing, I may as well you know, sit in bed and also have a power hour, which would involve, you know, focusing on things that she feels grateful for, focusing on affirmations, maybe doing a bit of dancing or yoga or whatever. So that then what she said is that there's been some mornings when her girls wake up, her daughters wake up in a bad mood. You know, they don't want to go to school, or they don't want to do this. And because she's got herself in a good place before they've woken up, it makes it easier for her to help them to get into a good mental space. So she's told me of mornings in her life where she does her power hour, she wakes up, the girls are not in a good mood, and then it doesn't drag her down, it doesn't make her feel stressed or overwhelmed as much, and instead it's like, okay, I've just done this for myself an hour ago, so I'll help my girls. And they'll do, like, they listen to motivation in the car and to positive videos in the car. They'll honestly, they're incredible children. One's I think 5 and 9 or 7 and 9 or something like this now. I haven't seen them in a while because of lockdown and stuff, but they're incredible, and they do affirmations of their own. They say what they're grateful for, you know, and then she'll drop them off at school, and then before she does anything else, she has this park that's nearby to the school, and she'll just take, even if it's just 5 minutes, to pull over by the park, and just like go to this little peaceful area, just so that after she's poured so much out to her children, she can kind of like recalibrate, ground again, and then proceed with the rest of her day. And she runs empowerment things, she's got her own team, so she's pouring so much out to so many people all the time. And a lot of us women do that, even if it's not in a professional sense. You know, pouring out to others. And I'm sure you've heard it before, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So for any mums maybe who feel like they don't have time to make that a priority for themselves, it should be the priority to be able to serve and look after family and be the best woman and mum that we can be. When we're fully charged, then we can be so amazing for everyone else as well.
Yeah, and I think that's so key, being able to give to self first before you show up for the rest of the world. And I know I do that for myself. I have to give to me in the morning before I show up for anybody else, because I've got to get me right before I can, you know, go into the world and give from my cup that's already full, you know.
For some reason, I think, and it's obviously that belief system that we've conditioned ourselves to think that tending to self first is selfish.
Yes.
And I think hitting the way you've hit on that from both your perspective and Danielle's perspective shows that no matter what your situation, it's always pouring into yourself first, and how powerful that makes you be. Cup runneth over.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I definitely think so. And I think we've touched on so many key things in this video. It's been awesome. And like I said, we can talk to you every, you know, I feel like I could just like carry on. I keep watching the time now. Yeah, like, so yeah. No, it's been a great interview. But to kind of close it out, who would you say has been the most influential person up until now and has impacted your life the most?
Wow, that's a great question. My parents, definitely, you know, learn from everything that they taught me. And then also our parents, all of our parents are probably our biggest teachers of not just how we want to be, but also sometimes they can show us how we don't want to be. And that can be just as valuable a lesson, you know, is we get to learn from our own mistakes, but you can also learn from your parents' mistakes as well. And I was just about to record a TikTok of it actually today. I think I'll do it after this to talk about, you know, why don't we believe, if we don't have a belief that we can do something, why don't we believe that? And most of those limiting beliefs are inherited from our usually our parents. And usually our parents they either adopted that belief because of what they experienced, or more commonly even from what their parents experienced and from what their parents experienced. And we get to with gratitude respect everything that all of our ancestors went through, so that we get to sit here and chat and listen to this video today. All of the wars that maybe our ancestors had to live through and survive through, any, you know, people who've got parents or ancestors who had to flee or emigrate or start a new life or live in poverty. Like, we're so blessed that we get to live today because of everything that they've gone through. But we also get to heal not just ourselves, but maybe stuff that's been hurting people in our family for generations. So that, and from a very spiritual perspective, often those of us who maybe are people watching who maybe feel like life is extra tough for them, those people are often their role is to be the turning point in their family, to break family curses, undo patterns. And I think that is possibly one of the best if people are looking for a purpose, and we don't have to just have one,
yeah,
but I think one of the best purposes to have in life is, what if you could be the generation in your family that changes the entire pattern of the way future generations live?
Yeah.
If you know that the way that you live and the mindset that you have is probably adopted from great grandparents that you've never met before, that also means that children's children that you'll never meet, who'll live in the year 3000 or something, will be directly impacted by what you heal and what you pass on to your future generations. And that is just mind-blowing for me, to think about that kind of legacy that we can create. And that's what this personal development and personal growth journey can really be about. Not just how many millions we could make or how many exes we can attract, but, you know, how many human beings will be alive on this planet in the future who have a better start at life, or maybe an easier life or a more abundant life because of the way that they're brought up.
Yeah. And I think what you just said was so powerful.
Like mic drop.
Like literally.
Thank you.
What we heal for future generations, and we heal down the ancestral line. So I think what you just said just touches on such a key point. It's not always about, you know, what can I get, but also what can I give and what can I heal going forward so I don't pass this on, you know. And that's going to be a powerful thing, because they're the next generation, they're the next future. And, you know, it's nice to have all the abundance and the wonderful relationship and everything like that, but it's also nice to do the inner healing that's going to impact down the line. So, you know, so powerful.
That was really powerful. That was powerful. Before we wrap up, where can our community find you?
Instagram, YouTube and TikTok are the big three that I use.
Those as well.
It's Life by Lucie on all of those.
Brilliant.
Which is absolutely amazing. This interview has just been
so great. Thank you so
I can't wait
much.
to watch it back and be like, oh my God. All these key points from it, which are absolutely amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Leah and Tia. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching this episode of Life by Lucie. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the bell icon and like and comment so you never miss another video. You can find all of our links in the description box if you want to connect with Lucie, if you want to connect with us, and we will see you in the next episode.